The first item we're going to be looking at today is this gorgeous PCOS awareness necklace by Cheremsak Jewelry. This necklace was originally designed by the founder of the PCOS Awareness Association, Megan Stewart. It's called Broken But Beautiful. As women with PCOS, we often feel broken inside, but this necklace is here to remind us that we are still beautiful. Amber revived this necklace this year and is selling it from her store, which I'll link down in the description box. It features a gorgeous teal marble, as well as different phrases like fearless and hope. And the best part ever, Amber has promised that with every necklace sold, she will donate $2 to the PCOS Awareness Association. So not only are you helping a good cause, but you're also looking fabulous while doing it. So, in my book, it's a win-win. Now we're going to move on to metformin. But first things first, you have to know how it works. When you have PCOS, your cells are essentially locked. Your body can't absorb the energy that you're putting into it. In this example, I'm using water, but of course in real life, we're talking about sugar. So with metformin and exercise, your cells open up, and your body's able to process that sugar properly and use it for what it's meant to do, which is, of course, give you energy. It also helps your body from storing that sugar as fat. Now, speaking of water, it is important to stay hydrated while you're on metformin. Some of the side effects can cause dehydration. Speaking of those side effects, they're not pretty nice, and I actually have a few hacks. The first, of course, is tea. Ginger tea, peppermint tea. I got this brand at Target, but you can find these teas anywhere, in any supermarket. Maybe not this brand specifically, but also you can make your own ginger tea. All you have to do is shave down a piece of ginger and slice it up and put it in some hot water. It is a perfect solution to when you're feeling nauseous. I personally like the tea bags because they're perfect for grab and go. You can put a few in a plastic bag and throw them in your purse and have them whenever you need them. Next week I'll share part 2 of my metformin hacks. Now it's time to meet the Soul Sister of the Week, Miss Alexandra Hall from Orange County, California.
When did you get diagnosed with PCOS and how did you find out?
It was about a decade ago. I had started to show symptoms at a very young age when puberty kicked in, but it felt like just puberty symptoms. So it wasn't until high school when I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and then started to put on weight very rapidly without any change to diet. And then just kind of survived high school like that. And it wasn't until I was about 20 years old, my mom had been diagnosed with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and she started to notice that I had symptoms of something, and it felt not just dealing with it. And so she looked into it, and my mom discovered what PCOS was, and she took me into her endocrinologist and went through the whole thing of the 3-hour glucose test, like 12 vials of blood, checking everything out, and it came back that I definitely had it. So, yeah.
What is your treatment like, or what was it like at the time? What is it like now? Has it changed?
Yeah, at the time we started me on metformin. I was also on Synthroid for hypothyroidism, and it was really difficult because I had been surviving with the PCOS symptoms for so long that the side effects of being on metformin were so horrendous for me that I just couldn't get over them, and so I basically stopped taking it. I kind of was like, you know what, I will deal. Just because there was nothing, it was worse, the side effects were worse for me personally. And as far as treatment went going forward, through my mother, she was being treated for type 2 diabetes. She was on 180 units a day of insulin to try and deal with it. And eventually her endocrinologist suggested, and she started looking into having gastric bypass because they knew that gastric bypass was almost a cure for type 2 diabetes. And she had it done in April of, I think, 2014 or 2015, and came off insulin entirely and didn't have to go back on it. She's been on one pill of metformin a day to deal with some of the other things, but for the most part, nothing. And she lost 70 pounds. And after that, she looked at me and went, you have the same symptoms. You have, like, projection-wise, I was going to be in the exact same place she was in. Mm-hmm. And so she said, we're getting weight loss surgery for you. We're going to make that happen. And so almost 3 years ago, I went through the vertical sleeve gastrectomy, which is similar but different from a gastric bypass. They remove about 70% of your stomach, leave you with about 3 ounces. They do not reroute your intestines like they do in a gastric bypass. And within a year, I had lost like 100 pounds. And it had mostly cured me of all of the symptoms of PCOS. My skin cleared up. Now my hair didn't come back. I had lost a lot of my hair, but it was acne. I had regular periods. All of a sudden, like to the day, they were perfect. It was crazy. I had never had that in my entire life. I lost all of the weight, any inflammation, aches, pains, all the things that come along with insulin resistance, like completely went away. My anxiety cleared up a lot. It's not gone. It's something that, along with depression, has been something that's probably my most difficult ongoing struggle, but now I can deal with it because I'm not dealing with the rest of it so much. So
many women with PCOS, they experience a lack of self-confidence. Did you experience that, and has it cleared up at all? Or
that is probably the one thing that was the hardest for me, because as a heavy person, so I'm 5'2", I weighed 252 pounds, I think. At my highest may have been more. I was a size 24 in jeans. I had no interest in dating because anybody who showed interest in me, I thought had to be crazy because I didn't like me. So my assumption was, well, you've got to be gross if you think that this is what you want. I was very boisterous and loud and pretended to be very confident, but there was a couple of years in there where I was basically a shut-in. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't have a job. I eventually did get a job. I started to do a little bit better, but it wasn't until weight loss surgery and the symptoms clearing up and losing the weight, even just some of the weight, not even getting down to what I'm at now, completely changed my perspective on life. I had always thought that I was just an introvert who just liked to be alone and had a few friends. And the second the weight came off, it was like, oh no, remember how you're a trapped extrovert and you want to be out all the time with everyone? Yeah, that's actually what you're like. So it was like a complete 180.
During your journey, did you have any, were there any people that stood out to you that offered you support or help, or did you do a lot of this by yourself, or?
My mom is key, and my best friend, she was also key to this because, especially in the worst of my days, she would be like, come on, we're going out. You don't get to sit here and do nothing, and it wasn't fixing the physical part of it for me, but it was helping with the mental part of it. That's like, you don't get to just sit here and do nothing for the rest of your life. But at the time, I didn't know anybody else who had this. This was completely new to me. No one else I knew had it. I also don't think a lot of people I knew talked about it. And I don't know why. I don't know if it was just something they felt like they had to deal with, or if it was like me, they didn't know that there was more people out there who could talk about it. But yeah, it really wasn't until finding communities on the internet that I was able to really meet with people. And then once I started talking about it, especially after my weight loss with that and having this, I would have friends reach out to me and be like, oh, I totally have that. And it's like, why didn't we talk about this sooner, guys?
Symptoms. Do you have any more symptoms now that you've had the surgery?
I still have some issues with acne. The hair loss was the thing that bothered me the most because it's just never coming back. That's the end of it. And I still have a tendency, even with, that's the thing with weight loss surgery, is that it's not a magic bullet. I can still mess this up, and I can still overeat, and I can still eat high calorie foods that are easy. I can graze, and I can put all of that weight back on, and I know people who have after weight loss surgery. So that's kind of a misconception people have, is like, oh, basically take out your stomach and then you lose all the weight. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. I still have to change my diet. I have to eat my protein first. I have to work out. And in the past year, I have put on 15 pounds. And some of that can be attributed to being almost 30. Some of that can be attributed to not exercising enough. Some of it can be all kinds of things. Some of it's got to do with my antidepressants.
Many women with PCOS, they have to adapt to a no refined starches, no processed foods, and no sugar type of diet. Of course, as we know, PCOS affects every woman differently, and diets affect every woman differently.
Yep.
So for you, what has been your eating like, especially with the surgery and everything?
Yeah, the surgery has a symptom or a side effect where it's good and bad. High calorie, high fat, and high sugar foods cause something referred to as dumping syndrome. It's the same thing basically as the side effects I had for metformin, and what it is your body goes, that was too much of something, and now you're having the shakes, it makes vomiting, diarrhea. It's like horrible. The whole thing is horrible. But the added benefit to that is I don't eat ice cream anymore. It makes me sick, so I just don't eat ice cream anymore. I have found other vices. There's different things that I will eat, but for the most part, what I try and stick to is I eat my proteins first. I try and stick to lean proteins. I don't do it all the time. You know, you go to your veggies next, and I, like, at the end of my meal, if I have room in my 3-ounce stomach, I'll take a bite of starch.
How are you today, PCOS wise? I mean, we kind of asked this question, but like, how's it going? Do you notice it in your daily life, or?
For me, I think I'm really lucky in that I don't. I think for the most part, I don't notice it, and it isn't until I'm having issues with my anxiety or depression that I remember, oh yeah, my hormones don't do what they're supposed to do, and then it's like it's a bummer. But those are things I have to deal with differently. So for the most part, I've been really lucky, and it mostly does not affect me anymore. It doesn't mean it's not there, and then when I do start to notice symptoms like the weight gain, things like that, then it's like, oh yeah, I have this thing I need to remember to do things differently with. So, but luckily I don't have to be on any of the medications anymore, so that's been probably the biggest blessing for me. As much as it was a relief to know that the 40 pounds, 100-pound weight gain that I had wasn't my fault, because that was the worst part, was knowing that it was not my, like, thinking that it was my fault was horrifying. It was like, oh, I'm lazy and I eat too much. Great. I can't seem to control that. And then finding out that, no, wasn't you. This is just how you're built. And so that was a bit of a relief, but it still felt very hopeless for a very long time because the medications didn't work for me. I couldn't take them. And dieting was exhausting, and I didn't want to be the person that I was, so I just kind of shut down. And it wasn't until the weight loss surgery that it was like, oh, this was the thing I needed to help me get on track and find something that will work for me. And that's why I don't suggest it to everybody, is because, like, I couldn't do it the other way, but that doesn't mean other people can't.
Do you wish you didn't have PCOS?
Part of me wants to say yes, I wish I didn't, because it feels like life would be easier, and especially when it comes to the depression that comes with it, because that has been the biggest problem for me, but also because of the kind of person I am and how resilient I know I am. I think it's been very important that I have this so I can speak to others. I feel like as much as I want to say, like, gee, I wish I wasn't depressed and anxious all the time, at the same time, it's like, yeah, but that means I can help somebody else who's in it. And so I would say, no, I think it's okay that I've got it. I think it's okay.
Thank you so much for coming in and for answering all the questions. So I think it's important for other soul sisters out there to see that you can thrive with PCOS.
Yeah.
Say you're thriving.
I am definitely thriving. I just got married, and I can tell you that prior to anything being taken care of and feeling like I was on the right track, I was sure I was going to be the crazy cat lady who lived alone forever, and I had, like, accepted that I was never going to meet anybody, and then within a year and a half I met my husband. So it's sometimes it's just a quick change, and sometimes it's a long haul, but definitely can thrive no matter what stage you're in.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Soul Sister Sundays. Check back next week for a pair of super affordable sneakers that are perfect for sisters that are prone to bursitis. Also find out where you can get this PCOS spider keychain and hear a few more metformin hacks, and you'll hear the story of Soul Sister Katie Day.